Greetings everyone, this is Rambling Collector here, and welcome back to another video. So, I wanted to try something a little different this time around, where instead of talking about a specific book or anything like that, instead I wanted to talk about a specific character. I'll workshop on the name for the new series, but I figured this would be a very fun way to create more content for the channel, as well as for you all to hear my individual thoughts on certain characters throughout some of the various books that I've read. And I thought for the first episode of this new series, why don't we talk about Megatron from the IDW comics? The robot who went from miner and poet to gorilla to tyrant to reluctant and Autobot. And that alone, the last part especially, and how he managed to turn around to that, was the best part of the whole entire franchise in my opinion. And to me, this cements why IDW's storytelling was one of the best that I'd seen for Transformers in a while, and it really reminded me why I'm such a fan of the franchise, especially with how they took Megatron's character from just the one-dimensional, I'm going to conquer the universe and rule all of Cybertron, to I am someone who was originally wanting to pursue peace the right way, but wound up falling on the wrong path. And Megatron really personifies that, in my personal opinion, because they really expand on his backstory in IDW, and with IDW, they were allowed to dive into much darker themes and stories than what you would normally see from mainstream Transformers series nowadays. And by God, Megatron's story the most really stood out to me, and it made him one of my favorite villainous characters, and just one of my favorite characters overall, for his story of not only how he fell, but his quest for redemption later on. So, to start off with, Megatron in this series starts off as an Energon miner, which became the main building block for his backstory for a long time during the early 2010s. And Megatron starts off as an Energon miner, working under a corrupted caste system on Cybertron during this time. But one of his first ever kills that he scored was against one of the major mining officials during a riot. But to start off with this, Megatron was an Energon miner, but he was also a poet, writing for equality and the freedom for the individual people to be out from under the caste system and having the freedom to choose their own destiny. And at one point, this all changes when Megatron at one point is arrested for a fight in a cafe and then assaulted by a police officer. Yeah, one of the state workers assaulting him just for kicks and giggles. And this would spark Megatron to become more of a revolutionary. And from this, we see during his first kill, he and a group of miners are scheduled to be taken to a prison colony. But they quickly manage to escape and hide in Kaon, taking part in underground gladiatorial arena fights, Megatron becoming a very prime gladiator during that time. But this allowed him to not only gain that fighting experience, but also to see more of the underclass of Cybertron, the downtrodden, the abused. And he took this and decided to engage in violent revolution. And we see during his original miniseries, Megatron Origin, how he is responsible for taking down Sentinel Prime. And I'm just going to say this right now, Megatron has a very big history on taking down primes, except for Optimus. Like, his record at this point is taking down 2 primes, Sentinel and Zeta, in just this series alone. And that just tells you that this Megatron is not someone to mess with at all. And the fact that Optimus is still able to keep up with and fight against him as equals tells you a lot about Optimus as a character. But, all that being said, we see Megatron's character and how it's not just this tyrannical leader wanting to conquer the universe. We see that at first he wanted to make real positive change to the status quo on Cybertronian society. And at one point, we actually see him and Optimus sitting down having a casual conversation about why Megatron at one point surrendered to the Autobots to their custody. And we see them talking, not only just about what they'd want to do when the war is over, but about the various many times that those two have brushed with death during the many millennia that they have spent fighting in this civil war. And I've got to tell you right now, the fact that it goes from Optimus slicing Megatron shoulder to crotch with a sword, missing his spark by inches, to Optimus then saying, hey, well, you ended up vaporizing me to the point that they had to scrape me off the wall just to regenerate me back. Just that alone, the way they can casually talk about how many times they brushed with death fighting each other, says a lot about how they have grown to respect each other, not as leaders, but also as just equals in a way. They understand each other on a very deep level with how many times they've come to blows, or even just talked. But with Megatron, we see at one point this grandiose vision that he has for when the war is over and the Decepticons have won. He states about how he would go about rebuilding Cybertronian society, rebuilding the population, and just garnering peace. Peace through tyranny, as he puts it. And in a way, seeing that grandiose idea that he has for the work that he plans to do, how he describes the war as merely a footnote, and how the real work will be rebuilding Cybertronian society, that says a lot about Megatron as a character. But then further on, when we see him trying to take over Cybertron again, and then we see him coming to that realization of just what he has caused, how far he had fallen from his original goals, after facing off against one of his former lieutenants. And then we see Megatron make the biggest decision and one of the biggest surprises in all of Transformers history by turning away from the Decepticons and proclaiming himself as an Autobot after witnessing the death of Bumblebee. And this alone is where Megatron's story really took a massive turn for me, and where he really became one of my favorite characters, because Megatron as an Autobot is not something you would typically see, ever. And I know that they've done it now where Megatron has turned good a few times, such as Transformers Earthspark, and at the very end of Transformers Prime, but seeing it here in IDW, I think they did a very good job of it, because Megatron is not going to be forgiven just because he slapped on a new badge. Let's face the facts right then and there. At one point, he is put on trial, and the various crimes that he has committed is too numerous to name. And at that point, if he had been left to the mercy of the Autobots by then, he would have been executed on the spot. But he manages to stave off his execution by requesting that it be judged by the Knights of Cybertron, a very old group of legends. And because of this, he winds up as the co-captain of the Lost Light with Rodimus. And from this is where we see Megatron really grow as a character overall, because we see him reflecting upon himself, the various actions that he has taken over the years, and just how much of a toll that has taken on him as a character, and as a person, and mentally and emotionally, having to live with the various regrets of the very thing that he started because he fell away from what he was originally fighting for. Seeing those regrets, and at one point him talking to Ravage about just everything that he had done, how he came to hate what he had become in that moment. The reflectiveness of it was just absolutely amazing to me. Because it's one thing to not only just look back on your actions and really think, I've done a lot of horrible things, but I want to try to make amends for it. But even then, he realizes he messed up. He messed up big time from what he was trying to do, and he can never take back all the actions that he has taken. But he still aims to try to be better in that moment. And honestly, that was inspiring to me, to see the fact that he has made up millions of mistakes that he can never be forgiven for, but he still aims to try and redeem himself in some way. And that really just stuck out to me. But if anything, I really loved this very deep, three-dimensional version of Megatron, in my personal opinion, and it's definitely still one of my favorites. Now, I haven't read any of the new comics yet that have come out for Transformers, and I still would like to read the 2019 IDW comics before they lost the license, just to kind of see how different Megatron is from the original series to how he is in the new IDW series. I'm kind of excited to see how that will be, and if it's played out the same way or differently, I'm very excited to see what that will be like. But with that being said, I hope you all did enjoy this video, and if you have your own thoughts on Megatron, please let me know in the comment section down below. Were you a major fan of the IDW comics, or have you not had a chance to read them at all? And if so, I would recommend giving them a shot. They are absolutely worth it, 110%. Anyways, thank you all for listening. This is Rambling Collector, signing off for now, and I will see you all in the next video.